The weather outside is disgusting today, you guys. I really apologize for that because it's not going to make this car look good and it keeps raining. But it's not going to clear up until after I have to give this car back. So we're going to do what we can with what we've got and make the best of it. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Josh, and today I have a very special surprise end of year video for you all. And by surprise, I mean I didn't even know I was going to have this opportunity to get this car and do this video, but when the opportunity came up, I could not pass it up because so many of you have asked me about this car and to do a video on it and for my opinions and thoughts and all that kind of thing. So when this car became available for me to grab for the day and make a video, I jumped on it. And today we are taking a look at the Toyota BZ4X. So many of you wanted my thoughts as a Toyota owner on this car. Now, right up front, before we even get into the video, I want to be very clear with you all here that this is not going to be a facts and figures video where we talk all about charging curve and all the numbers down to the last decimal point and all that kind of thing. And so today I'm just going to approach this vehicle as what it is, an EV from Toyota that they think will appeal to people like me. Okay, so with all that said, I have had some seat time in this car before this, but not nearly the amount of time I've had this go around. And this is a car that's of special interest to me because, as you may know, if you're a subscriber of mine, my daily driver is a RAV4 Prime. And for the past 4 to 5 months, we also owned a 2023 Toyota Prius. And looking around this car and driving it out on the road and just kind of immersing myself in this BZ4X experience, I can tell you that this car really truly does split the difference right down the middle between those two other cars. If the RAV4 Prime and the new Prius had an offspring, I think this is what it might be like. So for example, looking forward from here where I am in the driver's seat, this driver pod and the steering wheel and even the center console, there's a lot of new Prius going on. There is a little bit of Venza as well in here with the digital touch controls for the climate, which I am not a fan of, as you probably know if you've watched any of my videos about the new Lexus products. But then beyond that, the interior of this car, the seats that we're sitting in here right now feel very similar to what the seats that are in the RAV4 and the Venza. And overall, the size and shape of this car is very, very close to the RAV4. And the all-wheel drive system in this car is much more similar to the RAV4's all-wheel drive system than the Prius's all-wheel drive system. And of course, on a Prius Prime, you can't even get all-wheel drive. So again, right down the middle in terms of the overall experience of this BZ4X. And that really has been my biggest takeaway, having now driven this car for the past day or so, is how familiar this car will feel to any of you out there who have a new or new-ish Toyota. And I think that's a big part of this car's strategy and mission, is to really ease that adoption into new technology and new ways of doing things, because Toyota owners as a bunch are, generally speaking, very conservative and really do play it safe when it comes to embracing new ideas and new technologies and new ways of doing things. And this car, because so much of it is shared with existing Toyota models that are either gas or hybrid, you don't feel like you're getting into something that is entirely new, because you really do have a lot of the things that are going to feel very familiar to you from your existing Toyota cars that you can hang on to as you ease your way into EV ownership. And I think, again, that is really beneficial for some people out there. But even for people like me who are more willing to adopt new technology, and I am genuinely very excited about where EVs are going. I love that we have normal buttons, hard toggle switches, rocker switches, normal turn signal stocks, buttons on the steering wheel that do one thing and one thing only, and are very clearly labeled with what that one thing is. And the little toggles here in the air vents to control where my airflow is coming out of, and just all the things that we all have learned over time how to use in a car and just work really well. This car still has all those old school, antiquated kind of things in it. So it should be pretty clear at this point that this BZ4X really does take a different approach to EV design than many others out there. And as a result, we have an interior and a general design language that is very familiar and very similar to other Toyotas out there. Now let's talk about this interior. And I want to set the stage here and tell you that this BZ4X, as far as I can tell, is a fully loaded limited, which is the top trim, which I believe comes to about $53,000. And right off the bat, I'll tell you that I don't think that this is a $53,000 interior. Now, again, because this is really supposed to be something of an electric RAV4, that's exactly the kind of interior that we have. Much like a fully loaded RAV4, We have a beautiful panoramic moonroof. In this car, we have really nice, this is either Softex or leather trimmed upholstery here on the seats. And this is a really nice kind of oyster or gray type color. It's got a little bit of warmth to it, so it's not pure gray. And overall, the vibe in this car is really nice. I really do like things like the cloth texture that we have on the dashboard. All the plastics feel really good. The Softex around the steering wheel feels really nice. However, we do have more piano black plastic in here than I would personally care for in a car. Now, I am not completely opposed to piano black plastic like some reviewers out there, because I actually do think that in the right places and in the right amount, it can make an interior look very elevated over just some piece of flat black plastic. But in this BZ4X, it is everywhere, and it is in all the places where you actually rest your hands and use your fingers to control things. So it's all over the center console, it's all over the doors, right by the window switches, and everywhere I'm going to lay my hands in this car, my fingers and palms land on a piece of the piano black plastic. The other thing that I was really, it's the tiniest and stupidest thing, but I have to show you anyway because it's the kind of thing that bothers me. So I brought out, for reference, the key to my RAV4 Prime. Here it is, and you can see this is a beautiful key. I actually really love this key fob. As you can see, we have gloss black here on the buttons. We've got a really nice silver trim thing here. We've got on the back side, we've got a beautiful little applique that says RAV4 on it, as you can see there. This is a really nice key, has a lot of good heft in the hand, and I love using this key with the RAV4 Prime. Now let me show you the key for the BZ4X. So on the front, not very different, though you'll notice that on the BZ4X the buttons are a flat black plastic, and I don't think they look as nice as the ones on the RAV4 key. We also have, instead of the silver trim along the sides and bottom of the key fob, it's just a flat black plastic. But where this is really offensive, this BZ4X key is really offensive, is, let me show you the back. Are you ready for this? Not even a logo, like not even a, just like a stick on, you know, engraved like Toyota thing. Like it's blank, completely blank. Like, hello? This looks like the kind of thing that you buy on like eBay or Alibaba when you can't afford, or you don't want to pay the money to replace the real Toyota key. So you get, you know, some cheap, like, you know, knockoff, whatever kind of thing. I don't know why this bothers me so much either, but if this bothers you guys as much as it does me, please let me know down in the comments so I don't think I'm crazy, but like, come on. But all those little things aside, this really does feel like a high quality product. It feels like it's fitting of the Toyota name, and I would expect nothing less coming out of the Motomachi plant in Japan. And even though there are some things about this BZ4X that make it less competitive in the marketplace, if you're looking for that Toyota build quality and the fit and finish and all the fitment that Toyota is known for and that draws people back to Toyota again and again, inside and outside on this car, you'll be very happy, I think, with this BZ4X. But of course, the big story with this BZ4X is the powertrain and how Toyota's first mass market EV drives. So let's go ahead, get buckled in, and we're going to take this BZ4X out on the road. I guess there's no real engine start, is there? All right, get your seatbelts on. Let's go. Alright guys, here we go, setting out in the BZ4X, and although it shouldn't be surprising to anyone, it feels very similar to what it feels like to drive a RAV4 or Prius Prime in EV mode. The difference between this car though and a RAV4 Prime, like what I own, is you really do feel the weight of the battery down in the belly of this vehicle. And it does give the car a sense of weight and heft that you don't necessarily get in a Prius or a RAV4 Prime. And it's an interesting sensation because unlike when gas cars are really heavy and laid down with equipment, EVs make such good power that even having this giant heavy battery under the floor in this car, there's more than enough electric torque and that immediate electric torque to make up for it. And I'm not sure if the microphone is picking it up, but you do get a lot of the same little whirring noises and the electric motor noises that you get in a lot of Toyota hybrids and, of course, the plug-in hybrids as well. And I love those noises. They make these cars so much fun to drive when you just get that little bit of a whir when you step on the gas, or, you know, when you hit the brake and you're rolling to a stop and that kind of thing. I love that about Toyota hybrids and EVs. All right, here we are at the tollway entrance. I'm going to punch it so you can see the acceleration. Oh yeah, this car is quick. This car's got a ton of good and usable power to it. And out on the highway, I mean, you are hitting 100 in no time at all. And I don't remember that being the case in other BZ4Xs that I'd driven in the past. And maybe those were lower trim front wheel drive vehicles. And so maybe there's a power difference there. I'm not entirely sure. But this BZ4X that we have here today, so much good power. And it seems to hit 60 a lot quicker than the numbers that Toyota publishes would indicate. When you get on it and you put your foot down, I mean, it legitimately throws you back in your seat and you are up there hitting 100 in no time, flat. And it's wild to me that, you know, we have cars that are like that now, and that are cars from Toyota that are like that now, because it wasn't that long ago that to get the kind of performance and seat jolting type of acceleration that you have in this car and many other EVs out there, I mean, you were having to buy like an M3 or an AMG performance car or something, and now, you know, these compact crossovers can do it. Now, something to keep in mind, and this is specifically for my Texas viewers, is the top speed of this car is around 100 miles an hour. And the reason I bring that up, I know a lot of people out there, whenever I mention that 100 number, they go, who the hell is driving 100 miles an hour? We are, here in Texas. That's about how fast people go on the interstate on a normal day in some places. And so this car is going to top out around that. And again, for most people that's not a big concern, but if you live here in Texas and you drive the kind of roads I do, you might be forced to stay in the middle lane a little bit more often than you would in another car. Now, the other thing to know about EVs, and this might not make sense to you if you've never driven an EV or have not driven as many as I have, for example, but all EVs kind of feel the same out on the road. It's not like the difference between a four-cylinder, hybrid engine and a big, brawny V8. You don't have that kind of difference in EVs because they're all just making electric power and driving motors that are driving the wheels. So every EV, to some extent, feels the same. It's sort of like when we went from analog film cameras to digital. Back in the days of analog film, depending on what kind of film you put in your camera, you got a totally different picture. So there were some really great Fuji films out there back in the day that would give you almost kind of like the same effect that you can get, like, you know, with an Instagram filter these days. But then you put in some kind of Kodak film, or, you know, go name a different kind of film, and you'd get a totally different photographic result. That's kind of the same, and that you can think of engines and electric motors the same way. So now that we're in this digital age of EVs, where every car just has a different size electric motor, all electric motors for the most part deliver power the same way. And so it kind of takes away, in my opinion, it takes away what makes like a V8 so special compared to, you know, some basic inline 4 or a good V6, or there's just not that much difference now in terms of EVs. Now, as you can see, we are driving here in the rain. It is not a pretty day here. And when it rains like this, our roads get really slick. And I've been really impressed today, because it's been doing this off and on all day. I've been really impressed with how the BZ4X drives in the rain. And part of the magic of this car's all-wheel drive system, one thing that does actually kind of set it apart from other cars out there, is this all-wheel drive system was developed in partnership with Subaru, who is known for their all-wheel drive. I'm really impressed with how well this car is handling, even though it is a heavy beast with a lot of power right at zero. So sometimes what that can do in an EV that's not all-wheel drive and doesn't have a great all-wheel drive system, it can spin one set of wheels, whether front or rear. And this car's not doing that at all. I don't know if you just saw that, but again, we're getting some pretty torrential rain here today, and the car's not being upset at it by this at all. The other thing I really like about this BZ4X is as part of the mission of making this feel like any other Toyota out there, Toyota has not gotten rid of coasting and creeping. So if you've ever driven a Tesla, for example, they don't coast and they don't creep. You let off the gas pedal and that thing will regen itself hard down to a stop. And this BZ4X does not do that. And I really like that because I think that coasting is one of the most efficient ways to use your kinetic energy. And finally, let's wrap up the on-the-road section of this video by talking about range. Now, I know a lot of people out there will say, nobody really needs, 300 to 500 miles of range because most people's daily commutes are around 25 to 50 miles. And you can drive yourself to work, come home, plug it in at night, and you're good to go. And by and large, that is true. Most people don't need 300 to 500 miles of range, but if this is going to be a one vehicle solution for you or your household or your family, it is worth considering that the BZ4X is on the low end in terms of range in the EV market in this segment right now. And if you live here in Texas like I do, that means that you can just barely do Austin to Houston on a full charge. I don't know if you could even get to Dallas. So And I do that in the RAV4 no problem, because when I run out of EV range in the RAV4, I can just revert to hybrid mode, and on hybrid mode I can do about 450 miles of hybrid driving in the RAV4 Prime. But because there is no gas engine to fall back on in this car, it really does limit where and how you can drive this car, and is something that you really do need to think about whether or not you can realistically live with about 200 miles, I would say, as a safe estimate of range in this BZ4X. All right, so that is a quick first impressions run in the Toyota BZ4X. Bottom line, this is an EV that's really going to appeal to Toyota people because it does really feel like home. It feels familiar, and this is going to be a very comfortable and very easy, I think, first step into EV ownership for people out there who don't want to adopt everything that's new from Tesla and Ford and others. The interior of this car, the switchgear, everything really does feel like every other Toyota out there, and I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing. However, you do really have to think about, like I said with the RAV4 Prime, you really do have to think about all the numbers that go into both the purchase and ownership of any kind of vehicle with a plug, and those numbers have to work for you. So the range being a little bit lower in this car than some of its peers in the marketplace is a definite consideration. Same thing with charging speeds. It may not impact you if you just plug in overnight and have a level 2 charger at home, but if you rely on public charging and or your distances commuted in this car are going to exceed about 200 miles, you might want to look elsewhere. On the other hand, because this BZ4X is maybe less competitive than other EVs in the marketplace that it is sharing that marketplace with, there are often a lot of BZ4Xs on dealer lots waiting to go with no markup, and oftentimes a lot of discounts being put on the car and lease cash offers on top of that, and that all is before any kind of state or federal or municipality incentive that you can stack on top of that. So in some cases you can stack discount on top of discount on top of discount on top of discount, and that may actually bring the price of this car down to a level where you feel like you are getting your money's worth with all the compromises that this car has to make. Now, the other question I frequently get asked in regards to the BZ4X is, would I buy a BZ4X, a Subaru Solterra, or a Lexus RZ? And I personally would not, but not because of the price or the compromises that you make in this car. I would personally not buy any EV yet, because I feel like all EVs, even the best ones on the market, and there are some really good ones out there, are still very much in their infancy. Like this BZ4X, we're on the first generation of a brand new product. So we really are. If you think back to the original iPhone, that's where we are with EVs. And you saw back in the day in 2007 to 2012 or so, the first 5 years of the iPhone, we made huge improvements over that 5 years to everything to do with the experience of having an iPhone. So Again, if you have to have an EV, it has to be a Toyota, then this is your only option, but I think it's an okay one. I, however, would personally hold on to, if you have a hybrid, for example, I would hold on to that for a few more years before you dive headfirst into a Toyota EV. But it is fun. It is really, really fun to get to drive these in the meantime. I'm so happy I had the chance to drive this BZ4X today, but I hope this was enjoyable. I hope this was fun. I hope that this answered all the questions that all of you had about the BZ4X. Again, go watch some of the more technical videos about the BZ4X before you decide one way or another to buy or not to buy this car. Very, very important. But thank you guys so much again. I will see you in the new year. Have a great one and take care.